Hi friends, this is Marilyn from tarotclarity.com, and I feel like I owe you guys a demonstration video because last week I said I was going to do a real question from my own personal experience and use it as a demonstration. And I did. I did two, but they both were so personal I ended up either retracting them and not publishing them for more than a second, or I just didn't publish it at all. So I feel bad because I told you I was going to do it. So I'm going to be doing it now. Now it's going to be a three card spread because I want, there are times when you do want like 9 cards or 13 cards or whatever because you want a lot of information and you want a lot of insight. But for this question, I don't really need a whole lot of insight. What I need is just validation. I just want validation, and I think 3 cards will suffice. Now, before I get too involved in this reading, I do like to give credit to my decks. I always do. And today I am using the Jean Noblet Tarot of Marseille by Artisan Tarot. I've done 2 review videos about this deck, which I'm not going to get into right now. So if you want to see them, the review, videos, go ahead. But I just am mentioning it because I like to give credit to the decks I use. Okay, here is the real question. During this period of time, the veil is very thin. We all know it, right? And I've had a few uncanny experiences, particularly regarding some pieces of jewelry which had been left to me by my mom, and before her mom and sister. And then, as if that wasn't like crazy enough coincidence, if you want to call it a coincidence, the very next day I had another wild experience, not related to those 3 individuals, but with other jewelry. And it was just so uncanny that both experiences happened within a 24-hour period, that I thought to myself, man, the veil is thin. I'm wondering if it wasn't them in some way connected to them, my mother and her grandmother, my mother and her aunt and my grandmother. So I just really want validation in my mind if it was them, and if it was a mystical experience and not just an uncanny coincidence. Another reason why, in my mind, I think that it had to do with a visitation is because tomorrow is the 5th anniversary of my mother's passing. And, it just seemed kind of uncanny that it's all happening. It was all happening now. So I just want validation. Whoops, excuse me. I just want validation. That's all. So I don't need a whole lot of cards. Now, I know some people, especially if they come from a Rider-Waite-Smith tradition or a Waite-Coleman-Smith tradition, will look and, for validation with yes or no and say, okay, if 2 are upright, then that means it's yes. And if 2 are reversed, then that means it's no. I don't do it like that. You can do it that way, but, for the most part, pip cards, you can't always tell which is upright and what isn't. And it's not, if you can't tell, then it's really not the purpose, right? That's how I feel. So I do it differently. I look at the cards. I look at the message of the cards. And depending on the message of the cards, I get a sense if it's favorable or not. So that's how I do it. So let's lay 3 cards. Okay, we have the 4 of batons. Now, I always will give you my interpretation individually. Like when I do a real reading, I don't go through this process of explaining like this, necessarily, because I read them as a whole and not as individuals. But it's easier to understand how I come up with my whole if you understand how my process in my brain works. So we have 4, which is a stable number, a cornerstone kind of number. The suit of batons I see as a social kind of suit. It could be politics, it could be your family, it could be your workplace, it could be, a group activity like sports if you're an athlete, right? So those are the connotations I put together with 4 and batons. So there's a stabilization or a stable thing regarding a social network. Now, since this is a question about family, it would seem to me then, the first card out of the gate, kind of a validation that it's something about the family. Okay, now we have the 9 of Cups, which, is almost textbook wish card, wish fulfillment card, right? We have 9 cups, 9 being just about as high as you can go before it turns in on itself, like the Wheel of Fortune, and turns and changes, the direction of the momentum, right? So we have a very high number of a suit, which can be very emotionally satisfying. Now, sometimes one might say that if a person pulls the 9 of Cups, their wish is the truth, their wish will happen. And so it seems, that, I would like to believe that it was a visitation from those 3 people, because it would make me very happy to believe that. And so this could be either doing one of 2 things, and we'll see what the other 2 cards will be, the final card and then the Queen card. It could be that I'm wishful thinking and that I'm hoping that this is what it is. Or it might turn out to be a validation. We'll see. It remains to be seen. And the Queen of Swords. Let me do the quint. Now we have a 4 and a 9 is 15. Now I don't give numeric value to court cards. Some people do, and that's fine. If you would be inclined to do to give the court cards numeric value, the people who do, I believe, would give the Queen a 13. Okay, but I don't give the court cards number value. So I would be determining my quint by the 4 and the 9, which would be 13, right? And how uncanny is that? 13 just happens to be the Death card. So I don't want to bore you with going through the deck. What the heck? I'm going to bore you going through the deck. So, of course, the Death card will probably be the last card, right? Sometimes it's right on top, and that's kind of cool. Let me just check and make sure it's not the last card. No. Here we go. Okay, so the quintessential message is the Death card. Now, the Death card is uncanny because, part of what I said during this demonstration is that the veil is thin, and I was thinking it was a visitation from my ancestors, 3 of my ancestors, my mother and her 2 sisters. Now, we could see the Queen of Swords as being a female, authority figure. The fact that my mother, tomorrow is the 5th anniversary of her passing, and I will celebrate it with, spell work on her behalf and everything. But it's uncanny. I think that the Death card pops up because it kind of validates that, the veil is thin. And, there's a female influence and, a family, a cornerstone of a family. That's how I can interpret it in relation to the context of the question. And, what I'm hoping is really true. So that's how I would have interpreted this card, this spread for myself with this, and I did actually, because it was a real question. And this is how I just found out now for myself that it really probably was a visitation, So, let's try to come up with the quintessential if you were to have added the 13. Okay, so say you did the Queen of Swords, and say you gave her the numeric value of 13. So you'd have 13 and 4, which would give us 17, and 17 and 9 would give us 26, right? 17 and 9, 26. And then 26, if you divide 20, if you subtract 22, some people do. That's another difference with me. Sometimes people would subtract 22 from the number and come up with, I think it would be 4, which would be the emperor. But the way I do it, it's the death card, right? So so let's pull the quintessential if we did it the other way by adding the queen. So here we have the emperor, which I believe would have been the other quint card. If we give the queen the value of 13, and these two cards are 13, then we get 26, and then 22 minus 22 taken from 26 would be 4. So then instead of having the death card, which gives it a different, a different feeling and a different interpretation, I believe, here we have 2 courtly cards, although an emperor is a much higher rank than a queen. But we have 2 people in the positions of authority who are looking in opposite directions, right? They're looking away from one another. They're at odds with one another. It could be a power struggle, right? And then we have a wish fulfillment card. And then we have a card of social stability in some way, or maybe even a card of boredom in a social arena. So in this way, I would almost interpret it as, if this had been the way it was done, I would say, no, it's probably not reality of what it's happened. It's probably not an experience from the other realm. There's a conflict of interest or a power play or some type of struggle of maybe one's mind and what one's hoping to see. So had I laid this card spread for that question, I would have come up with a different answer. But it wasn't the process that I used or use. This is. And I get a different response, I get a different understanding of what the card, what the cards mean in relation to that question. So I hope this little demonstration has been insightful and fun. And until next time, friends, peace and stay well.